Question number 11, Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Education and asks, is she confident that the information she relied upon in deciding on proposals for school closures and mergers in Christchurch was robust and reliable, and if so, why?
The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr. Speaker, no. The Ministry of Education has acknowledged that there were a small number of errors in the original data for the 215 schools. The Ministry has assured me that the latest information given to schools last week was the best available. In addition, I have asked the Ministry to put in place a special team inside the Ministry to be based in Christchurch to receive and review all new information.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister, was she provided with or did she ask for a physical assessment of the damage at each of the schools proposed for closure or merger and the likely cost of repair prior to finalising her proposals, and if not, why not?
The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I was provided with a range of assessments that went from an exterior inspection, depending on the age of the school, through to a thorough physical site inspection, as well as desk-based information, as well as advice retained from independent contractors who are geotechnical, structural engineers, property managers, quantity surveyors, and others who are expert in property assessments.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, that was a very helpful answer, but it wasn't actually an answer to the question that I asked.
I could see it coming. The Minister was actually asked whether she asked for evidence of physical examination of the schools involved in the proposals with respect to merger and closure prior to making any final decisions on those matters. I hope I've paraphrased the member's question, but that was the guts of the question, whether the Minister asked for physical examination of those schools. The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr. Speaker, I think the question was, did I ask for and did I receive, or did I receive? I had both, and in some cases schools are of a particular age that we know that they will not meet the earthquake standard. We got a range of assessments done, all of which contributed to the range of proposals that were put before me. Well, yes, for some, and I received some.
Order. I think this time the Minister has indicated yes, she did ask. I suspect there's more ground for supplementary questioning there. Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I accept that, you know, in your paraphrasing of my question, perhaps we might have lost some of the meaning. It was a question of whether she asked for and received a physical assessment of the damage at each of the schools she's proposed for merger or closure. So I think that it's quite specific. It's either, you know, it could be a yes or a no or whatever, but we could at least get a bit closer to the actual question that I asked.
Clearly the member is not satisfied with the answer he's received. Now, the Minister has indicated, yes, she sought advice with respect to physical examinations of some of those schools. I think the reasonable thing is to ask further supplementaries to dig into that answer rather than endlessly pursue the one question. I think it's possible to dig further into that answer, though. Chris Hipkins.
Speaker, did she ask for a physical assessment, or ask for or receive a physical assessment of the damage at each of the schools, of some of the schools proposed for closure or merger and not for others? And if not, why didn't she ask for that for all of the schools that she had proposed for closure or merger?
Heke Parata.
Mr. Speaker, the schools that have had proposals made to them have proposals on the basis of a mix of information. That information does relate to direct earthquake damage, but it also relates to the weather tightness of the buildings, it relates to the geotechnical integrity of the land, it relates to the functionality of the buildings, it related to a range of issues, all of which coming together related to the particular proposals that were considered.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
I accept that the Minister is being helpful in her answers and giving probably more information that I'm asking for, but in doing so she's not actually giving me the information that I'm asking for.
Well, Order, I mean the member is asking pretty straight questions. I agree with that absolutely. But I think what the Minister has indicated in her answer there is that for some of the schools involved in closure or merger, information with respect to earthquake damage wasn't asked for because there were other matters that affected those schools, like geotech stuff relating to the ground, weather tightness, existing weather tightness issues. Now, if I'm wrong there, the Minister had better correct me. If the Minister wishes to correct me if I'm wrong there, she's welcome to. But was that a correct interpretation of what the Minister told the House? If it's not, the Minister had better correct it. The Honourable
Mr. Speaker, I think I've given a comprehensive answer. There are 215 schools, of which 42 have had direct proposals. Those 42 schools have different permutations of effect that have led to the proposals. Some have had direct earthquakes damage, some have had weather-tight issues, some have had functionality issues, some have had strengthening issues. It is permutations of all of those that have led to the basis of the proposals.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I think I'm actually a bit more confused now, having heard the Minister's extra answer. It's even further away from the original question I asked.
Order. No order. No order. National Party members know that this is a point of order. And the member has some, in my view, some legitimate grievance. He's asked very straight questions and he has not received very straight answers. There's been no order. Order. No, the member has asked some very straight questions. And when I interpreted the Minister's answer and the Minister got to her feet, I think she repeated exactly my interpretation of a previous answer. Now, the dilemma is the member has only a limited number of supplementary questions available. I think he has 3 more by my reckoning. And it's unreasonable if ministers avoid answering straight questions. Now, I on the previous question, I said the member had more supplementaries to dig into it. What I'm going to invite him to do is repeat, because a certain amount of time has gone by now between when he asked the question, I'm going to ask him to repeat his second supplementary question. Chris Hipkins.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I'm not entirely sure I can remember it, but I think, Mr. Speaker, it was whether she asked for or received a physical assessment of the damage at some of the schools but not others that she'd proposed for closure or merger, and if she only received that assessment for some but not others, why didn't she ask for it for all of the schools that she was proposing?
Order. I think what the order, on listening to the question, my interpretation of the Minister's answer was exactly right, that in fact for some of the schools there were other issues involved, and that's why she didn't seek the information about earthquake damage. And it seems to me that the Minister has in fact answered that question. I think we should go on to the next supplementary. Chris Hipkins.
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker.
I've called Chris Hipkins.
Why did she state in her answer to my primary question yesterday that the categories restore, consolidate and rejuvenate did not relate to individual schools, when her written answer to exactly the same question stated that the criteria for determining whether an individual school was classified under one of those headings was, quote, extent of the damage, cost of repair, demographic projections and opportunities for renewal, end quote.
The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, the learning community clusters have been categorised under restore, consolidate or rejuvenate. The question that the member asked yesterday mixed the individual schools and the descriptors of the clustered communities, and so that was what I was trying to answer. There are, for instance, in the restore category, there are 65 schools in, I think, about 12 clusters. They are not all exactly the same, except that... So, as I was saying, there are 65 primary schools, for instance, in 12 clusters within the restore category. There are criteria that apply to the clusters that don't all apply to the specifics of the individual 65 schools, but the 65 schools do have some or all of those criteria. It is that complex.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I accept that was the Minister's explanation that she gave yesterday, but if that was the case yesterday when she answered the primary question, it was also the case when she answered the written question, and I asked her to explain why she gave different explanations in her written question and her primary question, and she hasn't actually addressed that.
Order. Members should respect the fact that there was a point of order being raised, and you know, the member is raising legitimate points of order because he asked the question the member asked related to the difference in answers between the oral question yesterday and a written question previously submitted. Now, the Minister indicated, as I heard it, that the difference was that some of the criteria do in fact apply to individual schools, and that's why her written question indicated that, whereas yesterday she indicated to the House that the criteria apply principally, I would understand, to the clusters now, and she's arguing it is complex like that, and that seems to explain that difference. Supplementary question, Nikki Kay.
Supplementary question to the Minister. Are there any other measures that she is putting in place to ensure the sector, parents and school communities can be confident that information received on proposals is robust?
The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr Speaker, in addition to the special team I have already mentioned, I have asked the Ministry to appoint an appropriate independent Christchurch person to oversee the consultation process to ensure that the views of parents and school communities are heard. The person will ensure community feedback is incorporated in the Ministry's final advice to me.
Chris Hipkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Is she confident that the assessment of damage at each of the schools proposed for closure or merger provided her with an accurate basis for decision-making? If so, why? Given Central New Brighton School was identified as having 13 damaged buildings, when in fact the most damage the school can identify is 2 cracks in their paintwork. And if so, why did she not ask for a physical assessment of all of the schools she was proposing for closure or merger prior to putting that proposal forward?
The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr Speaker, as I acknowledged in my answer to the primary question, there are some errors in the information that was originally used for the first proposals. That is why I have asked for a team to be set up to ensure that all new information that becomes available is used for this process. We are in a consultation, we are keen to learn of these issues, and if the member has more helpful operational detail he would like to offer, I will refer it to that special team.
Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, thank you very much. Mr Speaker, will the schools proposed for merger or closure be given extra time to consult with their communities? Given they were only given the Ministry's estimate of the costs to repair earthquake damage, geotechnical data and demographic projections on Monday, over a third of the way through the time that has been allowed for consultation, and given that secondary students in particular are focused on their exams at the moment rather than worrying about the future of their school, and if she won't extend that consultation timeframe, why won't she?
The Honourable Heke Parata.
Mr Speaker, from the time that the proposals were launched on the 13th of September and the timeline that I set out in my letter to schools on the 28th of September, it makes it clear that there are different phases available for this consultation through to April next year. There is overall a 6-month period. However, it is a process. I am keen to listen to the views of parents and the school communities, and I will take along with them the time that it will take, because all of us are interested in getting this right and getting in place the best possible education system for the Greater Christchurch region.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr Speaker, I'm not entirely sure that the Minister has answered. I asked her whether the time frame, it's a legal time frame that I was asking her about, and I'm asking her whether she was extending it. Now, that answer could be interpreted as either a yes or a no. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask her to actually give the answer.
Order, I think ministers are at liberty to answer, Chris. In my view, that question was answered. The Minister made it clear that where there were issues that would take more time to sort out with schools, more time would be made available. And while it may not have been exactly the wording the member expected, I believe that question was answered. Question number, order, point of order, Heke Parata.
What I said was
Order. The member cannot, by way of point of order, now add to her answer. Point of order, the Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Mr Speaker, with respect, you sought to adduce an answer that the Minister clearly does not agree with. And nor do I, nor do most people in this House, because we are sick and tired of having ministers' non-statements interpreted as other statements, and that become the record of the House, except we can't quote them, because the words are from you, not the person who gave them, namely the Minister. And I am sick and tired of it, and I think the House and the public are.
Well, I'm very grateful for the member for his views. The point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to indicate that the Labor Party will not object if the Minister wants to take leave now to correct the answer as interpreted by you.
To simplify this process, if I in fact interpreted the Minister's answer wrongly there, I will give the Minister a chance to correct that. Because what I said in declining the member's point of order, the Minister had answered the question and that she indicated that if more time was needed for some schools to sort out the issues, that would be made available. Now that's my paraphrasing what I thought the Minister said. If that is wrong, I'm inviting the Minister to correct that and answer the member's question. The Honourable Hekia Parata.
Mr. Speaker, what I said was that I have outlined an overall consultation timeline of 6 months, within which there are particular phases. So we have the opportunity to work our way through that. That's what I'm saying.
Point of order, the Honourable Leanne Dalzell.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a letter that the Minister wrote in response to the 5 schools in Aranui, where they specifically requested her to extend the timeline because of the many difficulties that they face. And, well, actually the answer is somewhat confusing, as that one was, essentially
leave no order. Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, I seek leave to table a letter from the Ministry of Education dated the 16th of October 2012 to the Director of the Labour Research Unit, responding to an official information request for the advice provided to the Minister prior to making her decisions, withholding all of the information.
Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Question number 12, Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.